you so much. And we kind of start off everybody the same. So what made you decide to become an attorney, and tell us about your law school experience?
Well, I will say that I was one of those many who graduated from college without a clear path as to what they wanted to be when they grew up. And so my older sister suggested to me, well, do something that you like. Well, I love to travel. I still do. So I was a travel agent. I lasted about 2 years and realized, no, this is not what I want to do. And so my husband and I were on a trip to Virginia, where I'm from, and he was already an attorney, and he said, why don't you go to law school? They're starting a new law school down in Bowie's Creek. Leary Davis is going to be the dean. And we knew Leary from my husband's employment. So I said, okay. So I signed up for the bar exam. Excuse me. Yeah, I did sign up for that later. I signed up for the LSAT, which was in April, and I scored high enough to be admitted. I had a lovely interview with a professor who I later had and just thought he was terrific. His daughter went to Notre Dame, so he was very proud that I was one of 10 women admitted in the class. So it was a different day back then. But I went because of Leary and knowing him. I didn't apply anywhere else. I guess I could have, but this made sense, and I'm obviously very proud to have been in the charter class and very proud of what Campbell Law School is today.
And what year was that you were in the charter class?
Well, we started in 1976, but the class of 79.
And you said how many men and how many women?
Well, we had 10 women who started with us, and I want to say we had about, I think the total number, and I could be wrong on this, was something like 104 total. We had 6 graduate. One finished a year after us.
Talk to us about those relationships of those women in that first class.
Well, probably the closest relationship I have with any of my female classmates is with Margaret Curran. And, she's brilliant. She went on to become a professor and an assistant dean. I think I'm going to get her title right. And we were on a moot court team together. And, she will always say that I'm the one who I'll do a draft and then she'll edit. Or she likes me to speak first and then she'll follow up. But she sells herself short because she's absolutely top-notch. And so she was great to have as a classmate. So I'd say she was probably the closest relationship I had. The others, Jan Lamb, went out west, and Gail went out west. Sad to say she's passed away. Then Sherry Alloway became a close friend, and she went on the district court bench in Greensboro. And so we would see each other at judges' conferences after I did that. So we maintained pretty close relationships.
Would you say that you and those women, and the men in the class technically, because it was the inaugural class, but would you say that you were pioneers for other women attorneys in North Carolina? And it's okay to say that. Yeah.
No, I think so, simply because I learned that there weren't even 400 female attorneys in the state of North Carolina when we finished. I don't know what that number is today, but it's considerably higher. We were obviously given some interesting interviews when we graduated. I clerked in the U.S. Attorney's Office after my second year there, and one of my fellow clerks was telling me about having interviewed and being asked about whether she planned to be pregnant anytime soon. So I don't think they ask you that anymore. They shouldn't have asked it then, but I don't think they ask you that anymore. I did actually interview with a all-female law firm, but they really weren't looking for anybody. I just, sent those applications out and crossed my fingers. But yes, I would say all of us had the experiences of being judged, if I can use that term, in a way that they didn't judge the men. It was like you could have that feeling of, I remember when I was sworn in, the judge who swore me in told me, now if you have a client and your client is found guilty, don't cry. Oh yeah, he said that. And so I was like, no, sir. You just grin and bear it. But I don't think that happened. That's not happened for years, I'd like to think. But yeah, at the beginning, we were pretty much, if we were in the courtroom, we were definitely given that, what are you doing here, look?
So take us through your career. Just tell us your career path.
Okay, well, even though I had applied for a lot of jobs, I didn't get any opportunities. I mean, I got one as a paralegal. And I said, no, thank you. I don't think so. I have my law degree. I don't want to do that. So once again, my helpful husband said, you might consider talking to Jim Bullock. Well, Jim Bullock I had also met through my husband's job with the League of Municipalities. And Jim Bullock was one of the 3 deputy attorneys general in the state. So he agreed to give me an interview and basically gave me 2 Attorney 1 positions, start-out jobs. And one was in the utilities section and the other was in motor vehicles. And I said to myself, oh my, I've never had a class in either one of those subjects in law school. And I don't think they're offered anyway. But I said, well, what do they do? And so finally I just said, okay, well, I'll go to motor vehicles. So off I went. And I was one of 3 attorneys. And my boss was, I will always be grateful to Mr. Melvin. Mr. Melvin did not wait around for me to be told what to do. He just said, I need you to do this. I argued a case in the state Supreme Court within 6 months. I just had a lot of good experiences. I stayed there for a few years before getting a promotion to the head of the section after Mr. Melvin got a promotion. And then after that, I got appointed to I have a friend who was a senior deputy attorney general ultimately. But I was the first female in the administration. I was promoted to be the deputy attorney general for policy and planning. And that meant I lobbied over at the General Assembly. And I did that for a total of 19 years in the AG's office. And then it was going to be an interesting year, and it was going to be redistricting. And I thought, I'd be interested in learning more about that. So I then was interviewed with then Speaker-elect Black and became his general counsel. And it was a 3-year period that was incredibly interesting, but one that I learned I did not want to do for the rest of my career as an attorney. And so while I was thinking about, wonder what else I could do, because I don't think he really wanted me to be a general counsel, or he didn't want one. And so I get a phone call asking me if I was interested in the judgeship that had opened up in Wake County in 2001. And so I thought, okay, well, let me think about it. And they said, you've got 24 hours. So I spoke to 2 of my, I will give them credit for being mentors. I talked to Judge Don Stevens, who I'd known in the Attorney General's office, and I talked with, at the time, Judge Tom Ross, who went on to do a lot of other things besides be a judge himself. And both of them recommended that I should accept it. And so I did. I put my name in the pot, and I was selected and was sworn in February of 2002. I'm happy to say that present was one of my law school classmates, Colin Willoughby, who was the DA at the time. So that was always nice to have another friendly face. And I came in there were 15 judges at the time, and Joy Hamilton was the chief judge. And so it was great to get to know her and have a woman who had been through similar experiences that I had. And so I enjoyed working there for full-time 10 years, and then another 7 as an emergency judge.
And it sounds like, hearing you talk about these different mentors, talk to us about the importance of that mentor-mentee relationship in your legal career, both as a mentor and then moving forward, both as a mentee when you were younger and then now as a mentor.
Well, it made all the difference to me as being the mentee, simply because we hadn't had that much experience in law school about going into a courtroom. I'm trying to think if anybody else any of my other female classmates really spent much time in the courtroom. So, I appreciate it. I asked questions and I took advice. I was not in the least bit intimidated, but on the other hand, I did not want to make a obvious mistake that I should have. All that I had to do was ask a question and would have gotten some help. So it was just incredibly important. Likewise, going over to the legislature, you really better know what you're doing over there because your credibility is everything. And if you mislead unintentionally, it sticks with you and you will have a hard time recovering from it. So I hope that, and then likewise, as I said about, Judge Hamilton and others, Judge Salisbury, it really made the difference to be able to go talk to them about interactions that I'd had with certain attorneys. And I even would call certain attorneys who were regularly in the courtroom to come back to chambers and talk to me about, had I done anything that anybody was concerned about? And because most of my practice was in superior court, not district court. And so that kind of experience was really helpful. As a result, when I saw somebody, after I had gained that experience, and I saw somebody who was perhaps in need of a conversation about maybe something they could think about doing differently, I hope that I was noted as being one who would help. In the Attorney General's office, I hired attorneys, and I hired females, not on purpose, just because they were the best qualified person at the time. And I'd like to think that people still appreciate that and have told me so. And that always, of course, makes you feel good.
So you've practiced law in Wake County for a long time, be it law or judge. Talk about the changing landscape of the legal profession over all these years. What have you seen?
Oh, it's enormous. It's just been enormous. I think when I was president of the Wake County Bar in 2001, I'll be corrected on my numbers, but I think we didn't even have 3,000 members. And it's more than double that now. And also, I'm thinking I came from a time frame where the fax machine was so exciting to have the fax machine invented, and we could actually send documents to people that way instead of having to, rely on getting it into the mail in enough time to meet the deadlines. It's totally different. Now we have e-filing. Didn't even have to deal with that. So it is a much more, in my opinion, complicated. The people who practiced a general practice when I came in 1979 was a pretty good number. Most people didn't, I don't think, specialize particularly. Especially in the more rural areas, you had to be a generalist. Nowadays, I don't know that people can do that anymore, and I will stand corrected on that. It's funny. we changed in the Bar Association overall, the North Carolina Bar Association, we kind of changed the General Practice Hall of Fame to just the Hall of Fame, because I think that's the way it is now, that very few people actually can do a general practice. Those law books, when I first started, didn't take up much more than a shelf and a half, and now they're not even on shelves. Books are not relied upon by not even that new practicing attorneys. Everybody's was relying on LexisNexis, and now it's new iterations. So I think the practice of law has dramatically changed, and I hope that the public will continue to rely on attorneys and not think that they can, oh, well, let me just go to, some online website that they think they can practice law themselves, on themselves.
Tell us about, through your career, I mean, everyone knows being an attorney can be notoriously stressful and taxing on you, on your life. How did you balance that? And what did you do for you to manage all of that and to manage cases, to manage from the bench? How do you do that?
Well, as I said, I've mentioned my husband Frank, not by name, but my husband Frank, being in private practice. We knew that for us, that both being in private practice was going to be too complicated for us to manage our household. We have a son who's now 43, and we have 2 grandsons and a daughter-in-law as a result. We also had another son who was ill and did not survive past his 3rd birthday. And I could not have managed it without some help. My husband had to keep working. But we were lucky to have a wonderful woman, Ms. Matthews, who came to work for us and, was able to keep me from, having to just, lose my mind. She was just a real stabilizing force for not only us, but for Matthew and our son Russell. So I think I was fortunate that I was able to find her and realize that I needed her to be there. My folks lived in another state. My in-laws lived in farther away. And so I was just lucky that we found her and that she was that person that could keep me going.
And where is she now?
She lives in housing over in Raleigh, subsidized housing. She's, not that much older than me, but she's getting on up there.
And would you say that the greater lesson there is, and advice that you would give, is to ask for help and say when you need it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we didn't utilize, anything that the Wake County Bar offered at the time, but we did utilize counseling because that's a tough thing to go through. And we're still together after 52 years.
So, and outside the law, what was your life during all these years practicing, but outside the law?
Yeah, I'm bad about not saying no. And so when a nameless person said, "We'd like you to run for the Wake County Bar Association," I did the board, and then we want to nominate you. So there you go. And I loved having that time. Alice Roman was a fabulous person to talk about keeping us in line. And she was terrific. So I was involved in the Bar Association. I was involved in a civic club, Altrusa. I'm still involved in Altrusa after 35 years. I'm very involved in my church. Don't say no there often enough either. So I'm, but those are the kinds of things that helped me meet people outside the profession. I loved being in, and I still love being involved in the Wake County Bar Association and the North Carolina Bar Association because of those relationships with other attorneys. But I loved my civic organizations because I love to meet people outside of the profession as well. Not so much because I have to look for clients. I never had to look for clients, I can say that, which is not like those in private practice.
So going back into the courtroom, can you think of an ethical dilemma that you faced in your career, in the courtroom, or something that you can share?
It's hilarious. It's embarrassing, is what it is. No, I really and truly only had to recuse myself one time. And that was because of, oh dear, it's so silly. But, we're big Hurricanes fans. And so we had season tickets, and we had them back in the day when they actually, won the Stanley Cup. And so we would sit near this family. And one day, it was when they were playing Buffalo in the playoffs. And these two gentlemen, I'll use the term lightly, were standing behind the family that we always sat with and tried to start a fight with one of the son in the group. And, they actually had to escort them out. There were other incidents of that. So it was about a month later that I'm holding criminal court, and they called this couple up. And it was I was made aware of the fact that this couple had been charged with disturbing the peace at the hockey game. And so I called the DA and the defense attorney up, and I said, I can't do this. I had this personal experience, and I'm not sure I can completely disabuse myself of this. And so maybe you better move that to another courtroom. So they chuckled, but they did. And I didn't have to worry about it, because I would like to think that I could have been completely, ignorant of it and do it. But I just went, let's not even have it come up. But I don't think I ever had to otherwise, recuse myself.
So it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same people, but it was a very similar situation.
Exactly. And I just thought, they were not nice people.
You can't bring hockey into the courtroom, right?
No.
Especially not that series. That was rough.
Oh, that was tough.
Because that was the 2006 series, right? And then that was Buffalo. Buffalo was...
That's right. In contrast, we had Edmonton in the finals.
Yeah, we were lovely.
Could not have been nicer people.
So nice.
Could not have been nicer. So, anyway.
My husband and I have said that for years. The difference between having the Buffalo fans in town versus the Edmonton fans, it was night and day.
It was, absolutely.
They were so nice. They were like, oh yeah, you guys are going to enjoy the cup, eh? Like, congratulations. You guys are going to... I'm like, you guys are so nice.
Yeah, that's true. And I felt bad in a way. I mean, it was so exciting to win. But so I was cheering for good old Edmonton last year when we didn't make it again.
I know, that was rough. So where do you see the future of the profession in Wake County?
Well, the population is growing incredibly fast. And so I think there will always be the need for the attorneys we have. I know some people probably go, how many more can we have? But I don't think that the population can't absorb them. I would like to see, of course, more attorneys go in the more rural areas, but it is probably more attractive to come here. That's where more of the jobs would be. But I think that the Wake County Bar, talking about that collectively, has got fabulous attorneys. I'm proud of the fact that I don't see discipline having been needed here. I think the current attorneys that are out there have enough of those mentors that they can hold it in the rails and aren't tempted. Yes, we have a couple that have been slapped down, and they needed to be. But I think there's a bright future, even though it's going to be changing, and we've just got to figure out how to stay with the times and what's going on. I alluded to the fact that, there are outside groups that want to practice law here, and the state bar is trying to figure out, well, what's unauthorized and what's not. I think we've got a pretty good handle on that. I hope it doesn't change to the point that attorneys become just taken over by AI. I have talked with attorneys who say AI is actually helping them because they're not spending time drafting things that they could just edit. And so that makes it better for their clients and better for their practice to be more efficient. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes, but I'm trying to be in the school of thought that it's not scary, that we just need to be paying attention and making sure we take care of our clients in a way that helps them. And that's, the only way to go forward.
So speaking to going forward and thinking back to the pioneer that you were, when you see the graduating class at Campbell Law in 2024, particularly the young women, what goes through your heart?
Oh, I think I'm happy because they're not going to have to go through some of the things we went through. They're going to be, what I'm looking forward to seeing them be the leaders, that they're going to be the ones who are going to be that are going to be, excuse me for that, that'll need to be edited. Apologize, I stumbled. I'm looking forward to seeing these new attorneys, the new female attorneys coming out and finding their place as the head of law firm and not just always knocking their heads on that glass ceiling. I feel like the glass ceiling is pretty darn cracked for them. And so they're not going to have to struggle as hard to be the ones in charge. I think that's seen in the judgeships. There are more judges that are women now. And I think there are a lot of other jobs that are available to them with that law degree. And I like the way that has opened up the profession.
And what are your words of wisdom to them?
I would say when we first started, it was, getting a job. And then it seemed to become, how much money can you make? And if you're fortunate enough not to have to be the breadwinner, I would say don't think about the money. I just would say think about where is the place that gives you happiness, that you're passionate about, that you feel committed. I know it's trite to talk about the fact that, well, if your job is work, then that's going to not bring you happiness. You have to be wanting to go into work every day and wanting to make a difference. My example of that was I had to hear a woman's case that she had gotten into credit card debt and she owed a lot of money, but she had not properly pled her case, and a judgment was entered against her. And she left the courtroom, and then she came back, and she said, "Could I say something else?" And I went, "Certainly." And she said, "You sentenced my son in a DWI about 5 years ago, and I want you to know that what you said to him made a difference, that he's now got his MBA, and he's doing really well." Well, you don't get many people say that, and I can't, but obviously it's stuck with me all these years. So my point is that if that's what you're doing when you're out there in the practice of law, and you're trying to help somebody, you're trying to do something meaningful for them, it will make a difference. And if you can only get one response like that in your life, to me, changing somebody's life is worth all of the aggravation and the papers and the, deadlines and all the other things you have to deal with. I don't know if anybody has any interest in what have you been doing since you retired?
Yeah, tell me. Tell me, we have time.
Okay. As I had said from the get-go, my sister had suggested that if I didn't know what I wanted to do, I should do something I loved, and I loved to travel. So that was why I took that first job. Well, I have been trying to make up for it in retirement, and a little before retirement. We would always try to take at least one good trip, but now I'm really working on my husband. He's still working, even though he's older than me. And so we've had wonderful trips to Italy. We've gone on a couple of occasions where we went for like a month. And we discovered that the world does still spin. And, you can communicate with your law firms and whatever because of the internet. So that's one good thing about the internet. We went to Australia and New Zealand earlier this year. We went to Portugal earlier this year. We just got back from a great time in New York and have a trip planned next year to Norway, the Faroe Islands, and Iceland. So I'm sort of hopeful. I want to be hopeful that I can still get around and do these things, and I recommend that everybody should start sooner than I did. Don't wait till you go, can I afford this? Well, just do something that is a little bit more, backpacky. And I was a chicken about doing that. I think it would have been great to have seen some places that I could have gone and just stayed at a hostel. I think my husband would have agreed to do that too. But so I've loved traveling. It's been terrific. And most of all, the being around my grandsons. They're fabulous. They're great kids. And it's scary that Hunter is now 13. I have a teenager. And Reed is 9.5. He wants the half in there. And they're just good kids. And I'm hopeful for their future and want to live long enough to see them succeed even more.
Thank you, Judge. We appreciate it.